Okay, it's time for another off-the-cuff review. And this time it's an IEMA. And I am honestly not even sure what's in this box. So this is going to be a surprise for both of us. Okay, let's just dig into it. Looks like the typical box. This is pretty much how all of these come from all the companies like Fozzy, Duke, IEMA. All these are pretty typical. As far as accessories go, we have an optical cable here. We've got a USB cable here, so it's giving me a little bit more of an idea what's going to be inside. And a remote. Let's open that remote up, take a look. It's a little different remote than I've seen from them before. Okay. What do we got here? We got a little bit of EQ, volume, select. So that must be for inputs, or I'm not quite sure yet. Display. Well, we'll take a look. Power supply. What do we got? They sent a 48 volt 5 amp, so that's a good sign to start with. And an antenna, so we know it's going to have Bluetooth. Still don't know. I'm sure the suspense is just killing everyone here. All right. What was that? Oh, it was a cover for the Bluetooth. Oh, okay. I'm not sure on the model. It actually says decoder amplifier here. So I'm not quite sure. But we have a variety of things here, you know, auxiliary out. We've got some optical. We got USB, optical, coax, RCA, that auxiliary speaker, power. Actually, I didn't even notice that right away. It's an actual display here too. I need to find the model number because this is kind of driving me crazy here. Well, I'm still looking. Maybe it's in the box. We have a mystery. There's no model number on the box. I'll tell you guys what. I am going to place the model number on the screen here when I get it because I'm sure it's within my email. So next thing, I guess, let's power this on and take a look at what it has to offer. And before we do that, actually, let's take a look at the case. It's got, you know, venting on the bottom, venting on the sides. I actually kind of like that. It's clean. No crazy colors or anything like that. Some rubber feet. I guess they passed the stick test. Knob here. It's going to be multifunction. Let's plug it in and see how it looks. Let's power it up. All right, now we're talking. You can see that screen there. It's flashing Bluetooth right now. I think we can cycle the different modes. Here, yep. You can cycle your sources with this as well as volume. And then I bet a long hold is going to be power. Yep. That's easy enough. Okay, let's just open this one up. Generally these all open up pretty similar, nothing too tricky. It usually starts with removing the volume knob. Oh, that came with it. I don't want that. Pull it off. Put that back in. A lot of times, honestly, there's not a real reason to open these up either unless you're into op-amp swapping. Not everyone is. It's not your cup of tea, not a big deal. But if it is, that's a hobby in itself. And typically it's a 10 millimeter here. So you can take those off. What might be tricky on this one is we have this display as well as the VU, so there's probably going to be some additional connections here. Were you guys the kind of kid who had to open up everything and a lot of times didn't put it back together with some of your toys when you were young? I think I was one of those kids. Kind of wanted to take apart everything. Probably drove my parents a little crazy with that. This one connects to the heat sink, I see. Get that one pulled. Looks like these both connect to the heat sink on the bottom. We'll see if that is enough to remove it. Other than that, we'll have to dig into some of the ones that are actually located on the front too. Whoops. Okay, see if this slides out the back. It's loose, but we're not coming anywhere yet. So it looks like I'm gonna have to remove these ones in the front too that are right here. The product name on this one's pretty funny though, isn't it? When you just see decoder amplifier. Hey, I'm okay. They could name it toothbrush and I'd be fine with it as long as it sounds good and performs right. What would you guys name an amplifier if you had the choice? Okay. All right, so yeah, like I figured, this is coming out like this. We have these connections here. Okay, we just had to get that ribbon cable off the front, and then we can actually get to the connection for the VU meter inside the case. So, just like that, we're free. This one it's kind of tricky to get out of here. Gotta give it some wiggles. There we are. Oh, okay. So it actually does have swappable op amps. So I'm a little bit surprised there. That is okay. We have 3 of them. NE5532Ps. Beyond that, it looks like, you know, kind of the standard IEMA board here, 3255 amp chip. Heat sink on the bottom that is anchored to the case, the whole chassis acting as a heat sink. Pretty much the normal thing we would see here. We have the Qualcomm. It's going to be your Bluetooth chip here, I'd assume. Beyond that, everything looks pretty normal, but I know people like to see inside these, so here you go. So after this, I'll reconnect that ribbon cable, get the VU meter connected, and go from there. The only thing that I can note on this is there was no thermal paste on the bottom, so they really should try to include that on these, but this one didn't have it. If you get this, you can easily, you know now how to open it up. You could add your own. If you're a PC builder or anything like that, you probably have it on hand. If not, it's a couple dollars. Okay, I'm gonna bring you guys back after I get this thing reassembled. I just wanted to show you guys that, yep, I did actually glue that back up, just like I said I was gonna. Not like my youth where I just took it all apart and, well, it never functioned again. Well, I hope it functions again. I guess we're gonna find out after I put this all back together and actually do the sound review and things like that. Okay, so let's get into the actual review on this one. And I've learned some things after reading a bit online and actually going through the instruction manual that was, well, it was primarily Chinese, but the last couple pages they were in English, but it still didn't have all my answers. So we'll go through this, show you guys kind of some of the quirks on this. There's a lot of good stuff here. There's just some quirks and things that I'm not even sure about. So bringing this one online, one thing kind of cool now that I have some batteries in the remote, you can adjust the brightness on this, or you can go completely off, which is really nice. We'll put it on full charge because that's how we like it. Volume, simple as that. The screen's actually kind of cool. Select, that's how we're going to change our inputs. There we go, back to optical. You can see here the sample rate. It's showing in red here, that 44.1. And that is accurate because that is what the capabilities of this S10 Plus are. So that will actually change based on the sample rate, which that's kind of good to see. A lot of people like to see that change as they go. The VU meter, some previous complaints about some of these VU meters is you turn the volume up and all you're gonna see is it bouncing against the red. Which is kind of nice on this one is, let me zoom this out. We do get a sensitivity adjustment and it's right on the bottom here. So you can adjust that to kind of your music tastes where you're gonna be listening at for volume. And then you can get a range, a needle range, how you like it. And now let's go into something that's a little bit strange. We have some EQ options, but no documentation as to what, well, EQ they are. If we go EQ, you'll see EQ1, EQ2, 3, 4. Then you have an option to go recover, and that'll actually bring it back to E0, which is the standard and where I did most of my testing. My guess is the other ones are something like, you know, rock, pop, bass boost, treble boost, something like that. But in the user manual here, we don't have the details on that. So you guys will just have to experiment with that one as it goes. And then there are tone controls on this one, but you can't access it from the front. You have to do that from the remote, which actually is fine. You can go bass, you know, the usual stuff, treble. So that's pretty easy. And that would basically cover the remote other than the mute. Nice positive on this one, it actually had a better DAC than I was expecting. It had an ES9018, which isn't one of the, the new state-of-the-art type DACs, but it's a decent DAC. I mean, I think it's the same DAC that I have in my Audiolab 6000A actually. So that's not a problem there. DAC, the actual DAC chip isn't everything though. A lot of it is how it's implemented. But it's good to see that they, are going with a little bit more of a premium component there on the decoder amplifier. That's the model name. It kind of surprised me, and it's a bold move, but I guess they're going with it. So there's kind of a lot that I do like about this one. I'm going to unplug it just so I can show you guys a little bit closer look. Looking at the back to give you guys another little detailed shot there. That antenna, USB, optical, coax, RCAs, an auxiliary out, and that is going to be your pre-out for a sub. And I did test it, and that is controlled by the volume knob up front, so no worries there. And then speaker outputs. And then the power input, as you can see here, we have that 24 to 48 volt, and that's what we always see on these 3255 based amplifiers. And this one does include a 48 volt 5 amp, and it is a GaN power supply. I looked this one up, and right now I believe it was priced $119 without a power supply, and with that power supply it came out to $152.99 direct from their site, just to give you an idea on this one, which actually isn't a bad price for all they include here. You get quite a bit on this one as far as connections go. Screen, we don't see that. Nice little VU meter. I know it's a stereo amp, but you only get one, but that's how these go. The build quality looks pretty good on it, can't complain about that. It's a little twist on some of the other ones that we've seen lately. All that's really left to do now that we've covered the name, the decoder amplifier, we've got the chip, we've got the build, we've looked at the exterior, the inputs, the outputs, things like that. Really, it's just the sound quality. And where this one kind of falls with me is it's pretty good. I mean, it sounds like a lot of the other 3255 based amps. When you think about this one, it didn't do anything that, stood out to me as a major problem. In fact, there wasn't really any major problems, except some of the funny quirks involved with it. And it did a lot of things well. I would say that I did play with the tone controls a little bit to kind of find what sound tailored best to me and the speakers I was pairing it with. I tried a couple different things. I had it paired up to like the Sonys in here when I was playing around within the shop space. And I also had it inside on some CSS speakers as well as some Emotiva. And it kind of depends what you have this plugged into and where the tone controls are going to fall. It's not cut and dry on that. They offer some suggestions within the manual actually on what you should do with the tone controls. My suggestion there would be go with the default filter, then play with the tone controls if you need. But all in all, the sound quality is pretty good on it. Has a lot of the connections you'd want. I don't know, it's kind of a fun little amplifier. Plus you actually get a screen on this one and a VU, so I guess that's a nice little change of pace. It's not going to have some of the really new features that they're putting on some of these budget class Ds, like the post-filter feedback control, things like that can help fine-tune some of that far end of the frequency response. But all in all, it seems like a decent product to me. The decoder amplifier, I would say, is something that I'd keep in a space like this in my shop. It's nice because you don't have to bring in 50 different components. You get a remote. It keeps things pretty clean and well organized. And you can see the volume from a long ways away with that screen. And if you want to get right up to it, you get a VU meter too. I mean, it's going to be a little small in a space like this, but I would say these are a lot of times intended for desktop use, which is the other place I would suggest this. Maybe you don't have room for all the components at your desk. Throw this on there. Has a decent DAC. It'll connect right to your PC or a lot of other inputs and power the majority of bookshelf speakers that you'd ever pair this with. Well, that'll cover it for today. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later. See ya.